Thursday, October 31st. The streets are crowded for the holiday. Even with the rain, hidden in the chaos is the elements, waiting to strike like snakes. And I'm there too, watching. 2 years of nights have turned me into a nocturnal animal. I must choose my targets carefully. It's a 3-tree city. I can't be everywhere. But they don't know where I am. We have a signal now. For when I'm needed, when the light hits the sky, it's not just a call, it's a warning. To them, fear is a tool. They think I'm hiding in the slivers. But I am the slivers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another deck driver video. Today we're going to be a little bit spookier when it comes to our decks. It is Halloween after all, so today I wanted to kind of make us the villain, get us on more of our evil side, our dark side, so that we can be the table of monsters. The monster of choice, you ask? Slivers, of course, but we want to fool our opponents. They can't know that we are sliver players, as then the jig is up. They'll know that we are the evil person. Instead, we want to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. So today I have for you 2 decks that are secret sliver commanders. They'll never know until you cast the first sliver. With that being said, let's get on with it. So, slivers. Everyone knows that slivers are extremely powerful as a hive unit. If you play a lot of slivers, a lot of the slivers make each other better, which means you cast more slivers and they all get really, really big. They are a hive mind. That is the whole point. Every sliver becomes every other sliver and they all just become extremely powerful. So how can we capitalize on this as best as possible? Now, of course, you might want to have a sliver as your commander. These are just yet another sliver, and usually they give one of the most powerful effects of all. But we don't want that. We want to be secretive. We want to fool our opponents into playing their decks normally, and we are the secret sliver player. So what is the best way that we can capitalize on slivers? Well, obviously, it's to copy them, obviously. So how can we do that? Well, we can either copy them through decks that really like to copy things, or we can just make it simple on ourselves, and we can have 2 commanders for you today that do the copying for you. The first one we have is Zinnia, and the next one we have is Riku. Now, both of these commanders for 2 mana essentially copy your creature. Riku is an actual copy, except Riku costs 5 mana, and Zinnia is an offspring, which means you get a 1/1 copy of it. But Zinnia is only 3 mana and gets bigger for every base power 1 creature you have. Zinnia is also in white, so it deals a lot better at removing things, and it has a bit more instants and sorceries and interaction, whereas Riku is green, so it's all in on the creature strategy. If these decks seem to interest you, please follow me as we go over the deck lists. Zinnia, Valley's Voice, is a 3 mana Jeskai creature with flying and 1 and 3 toughness. Zinnia says Zinnia gets +X+0, where X is the number of other creatures you control with base power 1. And creatures that you cast have offspring 2, so you can pay an additional 2 mana and you get a copy of it that is 1/1. So of course, since we're playing slivers, we want a bunch of kindred payoffs. We have a lot of that in the draw. We have a lot of creature ETBs. We have a lot of cantripping effects in Vanquisher's Banner. And then, of course, we just have the simple Kindred Discovery. We also have some Bident of Thassa effects that allow us to draw off of hitting our opponents, which is kind of the point. It's an aggro style deck. Then, of course, we have a ton of creatures that are really good if we multiply them. So this doesn't just have to be slivers, although a lot of the slivers with the Anthem effects are really great to copy, because their Anthem effects then double. We then also have some others that give us some passive benefits like Metallic Mimic and Knight of the White Orchid. These allow us to just copy those ETB triggers, which are really, really important. Out of that, we have quite a few pieces of ramp that allow us to pay for this offspring effect, the simple ramp, and then also we have 1 patchwork banner that allows us to make our creatures that much bigger. Since we are going wide, these Anthem effects are really important. That's why we really want to copy them when we can, and we really want to use them as much as possible. We have plenty of banner effect in this deck. Our removal suite is pretty good. We just play a lot of the most efficient removal, as Jeskai has a ton of controlling styles of gameplay, so we want to rely a lot on our counter spells and our instant speed creature removal. We have two sort of board wipes in this deck in Perplexing Test and Raise the Palisade. These allow us to get rid of all of the creatures on the board. We just return them to hand. This is good because we can then recast these creatures, and Raise the Palisade is basically a Cyclonic Rift because we can just choose slivers and we don't have to deal with anybody else on the other board unless you're playing against a sliver deck. Now, the last thing we're kind of looking for is just playing some good valuable slivers that can give you a bunch of keywords. These are always going to be great, and also allows us to just play more into that sliver game plan of having good creatures on the board that give each other creature a ton of value. Now, you'd be surprised, a lot of these slivers are very cheap for the effects that they give you, and a lot of them just allow you to make your board state so powerful by just playing one of them. It's really great. We have a land base that's actually pretty expensive. This is more of a evil style deck, so we're going to go with the best options that we can in terms of lands. And then lastly, we have some finishers and protection in our value section that are going to allow us to win the game just a little bit faster. The key cards in this deck would have to be Kindred Discovery. Kindred Discovery allows us to just get so much card draw over the course of the game as you say sliver, and both attacking and ETB allows you to draw a card. It's quite crazy. Sinu Sliver, honestly, for 4 mana, giving a 2/2 buff to every single one of your creatures is pretty powerful. Constricting Sliver as well, allowing each of your slivers to have 2 Grasp of Fate effects on it is quite crazy and allows you just to take control of the game. And lastly, Raise the Palisade. Of course, a completely one-sided board wipe is gonna be quite powerful in a deck like this, and we're just happy to have it. So, Zinnia Slivers. Copy your slivers, make more slivers, draw a bunch of cards, and keep casting those slivers. Aggro down your opponents, and of course with Zinnia gets pretty big on her own, so it's a pretty good combo on its own. Now, the next deck on this lineup is Riku of 2 Reflections. Riku of 2 Reflections is a 2 generic Teamer commander that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay Izzet. If you do, copy that spell, and you can choose new targets. When another non-token enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay Simic, and if you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature. So, pretty much the exact same game plan, but it's a little bit more of an expensive commander. However, you get an exact copy of the creature. So, it's not a 1/1, it's an exact replica, which is pretty nice. We have the same amount of just copy effects, cards that are really good to have stacking effects on top of it. Since we're in green, these Anthem effects are a lot easier to come by. Sinu Sliver is crying because the text on these creatures is so much better. Now, we do have the same kind of draw effects. We want attack triggers and we want ETB triggers. So a lot of our draw is pretty much the same thing. We have a Kindred Discovery, we have a lot of on combat damage, and then of course we have when we cast a creature spell, we get to draw a card. Just great value in terms of card draw. Now, we're looking to ramp a lot more since our commander is more expensive and we're trying to copy some pretty powerful effects. We are looking to ramp a lot more than normal, and luckily some of our slivers allow each of our other slivers to become mana dorks. We have other mana dorks that we like to copy from Riku's ability as well, and then we just have Soul Ring and Arcane Signet because of their value. In terms of removal, we have a little bit less than we do in the Jeskai colors, but it's because we're going a lot more aggressive in terms of our board state. So we run the same kind of counter spells, but we have a bit more of damage interaction and getting rid of those artifacts and enchantments because of green. We then have some good sliver cards in here that just really make our slivers that much more powerful, giving them a ton of valuable keywords. And lastly, we have some pretty great finishers with Shared Animosity, and we actually run a Doppelgang in this deck that can be a great finisher. Copy up your Anthem effects, copy up a win condition on your opponent's board, or heck, just make 15 copies of Oron Frostfang and then draw through your entire deck. You can really choose whatever you want to copy. This deck loves copying things. And then since Riku's ability allows you to copy it again, it's a pretty crazy spell. Overall, this deck, of course, is very similar. We're trying to play slivers and we're trying to copy them. Now it's just up to you on how you want to edit these decks and whether you like Teamer or Jeskai better. Honestly, I really love both color combos. Red-blue is some pretty cool colors, and then I love green and white, so I really don't mind either. These decks are super cool and allow you to be the villain for once. Sometimes we just want to let loose and we want to be the bad guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. In terms of playstyle for these decks, these decks are definitely an aggressive style of deck. You want to be swinging as much as you possibly can. You really want to dig deep for those anthem effects because copying those anthem effects are going to be huge for you. So in terms of mulligans for both of the decks, you want to be able to keep at least 1 to 2 ramp spells that can get you to get your game plan done faster. You want to have some sort of draw engine. And then, of course, a couple of slivers that you can copy. Now, not every hand is going to be perfect, but the mulligan phase is extremely important in this kind of deck. You always want to have some card advantage and ramp so you can get your game plan going. Other than that, once they find out that you're the sliver player, you might be hated just a little bit. But because these aren't sliver all-in decks, you have a good base of just these colors that can support you in winning the game. At the end of the day, Riku is still a really powerful commander, and whether it's slivers or snakes or elephant tribal, Riku is going to do a really great job. And same with Zinnia. Turns out copying your creatures is quite a powerful effect. So go out there and have a blast. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have enjoyed this video, please feel free to like and subscribe and support me on Patreon. I just started up the Patreon and you get tons of benefits from donating to that, as you get an extra video per week, you get shouted out in my videos, and depending on the tier, you can make deck recommendations for some deck techs or deck reviews. I want to take some time to thank my first ever patrons. Thank you to Francis Wilson, Red Toter, and Matthew Apostle. You guys make it all worth it. So thank you very much. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great Halloween night, and I will see you guys all later.